Right before King David died, he told his son Solomon to be strong, follow God's ways, and no matter what, not to worship other gods. Shortly after Solomon took over as king, God appeared to him and said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." Worried about following in his father's footsteps, Solomon asked God to give him wisdom, to know the difference between right and wrong. God not only promised to give Solomon wisdom, but great riches and honor as well. The first test of Solomon's wisdom happened when two prostitutes came to him. There was a young child that each of them claimed was theirs. Solomon knew one of them had to be lying. So he asked his servants to bring out a sword and suggested to the women that he cut the boy in two and give each of them half. One of the women was so worried that the boy would be killed that she immediately asked Solomon to give the child to the other woman. Solomon saw her love and protection and knew that it had to be her baby, so he gave the boy to her. The Israelites were in awe of Solomon's great wisdom. He ruled for many years, growing in wealth and fame. He also wrote down many wise sayings called Proverbs. During his reign, Solomon planned to finish building the temple his father, David, wanted to build. They built a temple that was not incredibly large, but was unbelievably beautiful and detailed. It was 90 feet by 30 feet and had 2 bronze pillars that led into the place where sacrifices were made. When it was finished, Solomon and the other leaders sacrificed a huge number of animals in worship to God. When they did, the whole temple filled with a thick cloud of smoke. Solomon prayed, asking God to meet the Israelites in the temple and hear their prayers. When Solomon finished praying, fire came down from the sky and burned up the animal sacrifices. That night, God appeared to Solomon again and promised to bless him in all that he did, as long as he would keep following God. In some areas, Solomon did follow what God told him to, but in others, like worshiping other gods, he failed. Because of this, God told Solomon that the kingdom of Israel would be taken from his sons, and they would not enjoy the peaceful, successful reign that he had.
Man, don't you wish you could draw that fast? Wow, that would be awesome. And to have that ability. Well, I'm Pastor Joey, and it is a joy to welcome you here at church today. I hope you've had a good, I was going to say spring break, winter break. I hope that you've done great on your winter break. I've shared with you before that the doors on my vans freezes. At least the one side freezes. It seems like whenever it drops down below freezing and the wind comes blowing through, and I think we're all at the point where yesterday I just like, come on, open, broke my handle off. You know, that's how that goes. A little puny guy here is stronger than I think, I guess. But anyway, we're at that point where we're breaking handles. We know when we're breaking handles, we need a breakthrough in the weather, don't we? Hey, God is good, and I want you to feel the love of Jesus today. I want you to feel the warmth of family and friends and acquaintances here that gather each week. We are the body of Christ, and we are here to take another step in the installment of the story. It's been a great series, and I'm so glad that you're staying with this, and we're going to see some other important things here in days ahead. It is chapter 13 today, and those of you who had a question about the videos that you're seeing here on the screen, the pre-sermon videos, those are actually posted on our church Facebook page along with some other resources. So check there often and at least weekly, usually after the Sunday morning message, maybe sometime during the day on Sunday, I'll try to upload those things. And then if you're missing a sermon in the series, then of course you can access that. We've got a great staff of volunteers, but they do need a little time to process and get things loaded, and that's happening in about a week turnaround time. So just be patient, stay with that, and things will be up and available to you. Well, welcome home if you've been traveling, and we missed you while you're gone, and so we are here and together again, and I'm sure there's still others probably coming in from their trips and things, and we are rejoicing that you've had some extra time to be together with one another. Chapter 13, the king who had it all. Now, this is an interesting installment of the story, and so I'll just alert you up front how we're going to approach this. I'll give you just a brief introduction on the life of King Solomon, and then I've got something special for you moms today. When we're in a series like this, it's difficult to pick and choose your topics. You kind of deal with them as the series affords you the opportunity to deal with those things. And today is one of those days where it's ideal to talk a little bit about motherhood in the passage that we're dealing with today, and you'll see why in just a second. But it's not just for you moms. I think in any relationship we have, what Solomon demonstrates here in terms of his wisdom is great, a great way to think about life. And in fact, I'll be presenting to all of us today two wisdoms. There's a godly wisdom and a worldly wisdom. I like things simple, two sides of a coin, right? And there's wisdom as it's that which we view life through our source of wisdom. And whatever we look to as our source of wisdom, it will emanate in every decision that we make. And so it's not a seminar on the good decision making, though we probably could benefit from those. But it's just a simple, clear lesson from Solomon's life that helps us, I think, in the decisions that we have to make. And so in this installment of the story, it's chapter 13, we look at a king that succeeded David on the throne. And those of you who are familiar with the David story, we dealt with that some last week. Solomon is his son by Bathsheba. And he was presented, now get this, 18 to 20 years of age when he assumes the monarchy of Israel. And you remember, Israel's been entrusted with the story. And so it's a very special nation, and that's why the Bible takes time to talk about it. Okay? Why not talk about other kings? Why not talk about other nations? This is not a story about other kings and other nations, though we see those mentioned in the text. This is a story about a nation God had chosen to entrust them with a very special story, and to make sure we got that story accurately. It was their job to record it accurately and keep out legendary accretions in the text, and to make sure we had a very clear story that was being presented, a truth-oriented story. This is their job, but now we're looking at a little more with a magnifying glass at some of the characters within the story, and we're seeing the grace of God carry out God's plan and God's story despite his broken vessels that he had to work through. But he used some of these very special characters to do some special things. And in this case, it's an 18 to 20-year-old king. Now, I can't imagine being king of anything at 18 to 20 years of age, much less of a nation. But this guy named Solomon, known as later as the wisest man that ever lived, he was 18 to 20 years of age, and he was such a rookie king, but yet he wanted to do a good job, and he had a dream or a vision where God comes to him and says, "Oh, young King Solomon, what do you want me to do for you, sir?" And Solomon, in that dream, he did not ask for wealth, which is surprising, 18 to 20 years of age. I think you probably use a little of the do-re-mi, right? To go fund your exploits and all the things you want to do in the world that you want to see. He didn't ask for wealth. He didn't ask for fame. 18 to 20-year-olds would love a little taste of the bright lights, don't we? At that age, we like to have that moment where we on the top of our game. 18 to 20-year-old Solomon never asked for fame. He never asked for a long life. God, give me many years, many decades of life. He never even asked for victory over his enemies like his father was able to enjoy. I want to be victorious. Help me to win every battle. No. You know what he did? This 18 to 20-year-old king. And there's a great application right here if you're in that age group. If you're a teenager or in your early 20s. You know what he asked? God, would you give me wisdom? Would you give me an understanding heart? I'm a young king. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I don't know, hardly have sense enough to get out of the rain. When to go out, when to come in, he says. Okay? And I just need wisdom. I want to be wise. I want to make good decisions. I want to rule this people and let them know that I love them and care for them and that I rule with justice. God, give me wisdom. And you know what? God answered that man's cry. He gave him wisdom to govern the people with justice. And as a result of it, Solomon became something of an administrative genius. He divided the country into 12 regions under 12 royal commissioners. Slide number 7, if you would, please. 12 royal commissioners. He built a standing army. He founded Israel's merchant navy. If you go a little further south, and I don't have it here on the map, but in the Gulf of Aqaba was where he housed these ships, and they would be kept there, but they went on these adventurous voyages for trade, which was phenomenal steps for economical reasons and political reasons and alliance reasons. He built palaces for himself and his queen, and together with other public edifices, he even built and constructed the great temple that his father had wanted to build. It was a temple built to God, and it was a very elaborate, ornate temple. It wasn't that big by the footprint, the square space and footage, but it was very high impact for that day and time. And Solomon became the patron of the arts and the composer of many songs and proverbs. And he didn't hoard his wisdom. He wrote much of it down, and he shared it. And we've got it in our Old Testaments. That's the book of Proverbs. He even wrote the Song of Solomon, which is a manual on lovemaking. The church fathers are so uncomfortable with that. But if you want to learn how to make love biblically, and you want to learn how to romance your wife or your husband, and you have to understand, it's Near Eastern poetry, and so it's built with that in mind. And so when he talks about fruit, and the fruit it's symbolic of the body, and so you get the picture once you begin to understand that interpretational frame of reference. I guarantee you right now, like all the young people are probably hitting that app, the YouVersion app. Let's go look at the Song of Solomon, right? In fact, they wouldn't let Jewish boys, like I forget what era of time, but Jewish boys weren't allowed to read that until they were like 30. So parents, no ideas there now, because you're gonna have a hard time keeping boys reading the book of the Song of Solomon before they're 30 in these days. This was a lover. He was a thinker. He was a person who appreciated the arts. And man, he had it going on. He had a great reputation. Justice spread far and wide, and under his rule, the people enjoyed peace and prosperity. And is it any wonder that Jesus spoke of Solomon in all his glory in Matthew chapter 6:29? Is it any wonder? Israel had reached the zenith of its magnificence under this great, wise, young rookie king who had sense enough to say, God, there's a lot of things out there I could want, but if you'll just give me wisdom. And God gave him wisdom. And you know what? God threw all the other stuff in as extras. Wealth, fame, notoriety, all these things. God just threw it in and said, man, you chose right, and I'm going to honor you. King Solomon had issues, though. And then this is what we're learning here in the story. Even chosen people and chosen nations and chosen kingships and things. These kings still have their chinks in their armor. And on one hand, he kept a harem of princesses who turned his heart after other gods. Yes, he did. This is 1 Kings 11:4. And on the other hand, Solomon was able to maintain his grandiose lifestyle only by oppressive measures such as high taxation and forced labor. And so this wise man kind of lost his way. And if that tells you anything, we all got to be a whole lot more careful probably than we are. If a guy, the smartest man that ever lived up into this time, loses his way later in life, boy, you can lose your way later in life. And I can lose my way later in life. And some people say that Solomon wrote Proverbs in his youth, and he wrote the Song of Solomon in his youth. He wrote Proverbs in his middle age because he began to understand he even wisdom, and he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, which is another wisdom literature book. He wrote that in his old age. And it's very interesting. He talks about his teeth falling out and all these things in Ecclesiastes. And he just understood. Here's a guy that walked through those stages of life. You're making love and you're young and Song of Solomon, and then you're trying to get wizened up here in your middle age, okay? And then you're about to, you're wrapping it up and you're on your final leg of this thing, and the victory tape is just out in front of you, and you're trying to share a little wisdom with people before you go. And that we see it all in the life of Solomon. Very intriguing person, but he lost his way, and it's easy for people to do. Now, when we think about a king that asked wisely for wisdom, we think about all the thousands of cases that he evidently ruled on. And there were thousands of them. And it's interesting to me that the one case study, it's the only one that we have in his story, the one case chosen to showcase this wisest person in the world's wisdom, it occurs here in 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 16 through 28. And perhaps the greatest wisdom of all is when a mom bonds with her baby from an early age and then raises that baby to fear God. If we go to slide number 4 to kind of get us ready for the reading of the text. Maybe, I thought about this. Out of all those cases, why would he choose this story to showcase Solomon's wisdom? I mean, if it were me, I'm horrible at math, so I would have just spun out some great math formula and just really impressed and oohed and awed everybody. Man, this guy's really, he's sharp. Now, some of you guys are good at math, so there'd be no problem. And some of you would be like, well, I would tell everybody what I knew about anatomy, and I would just really showboat that. And I would show what I could do musically. I would write these great songs, these complex symphonies, and I would showboat that. You see, I would showboat my athletic prowess. All right, I'll win a few contests and show people my strength. He could have chosen so many things to show his wisdom in so many life areas. But isn't it ironic? Maybe not so much. That a little mother-child dynamic was the one case, this maternal instinct that Solomon's going to appeal to, that thus gives him wisdom how to judge in this situation. Solomon appeals to the maternal instinct. I think there's some wisdom even in that, the selection of that particular case. And so maybe this is why that in this one judgment case presented out of the thousands, that maybe the greatest wisdom of all, ladies, is simply choosing to be a mother. If you want to change the world, you want to impact a life, I'll say it plural, lives, maybe hundreds. If you want to change a community, if you'll just choose that simple, yet powerful, yet dedicated role of motherhood, you can do far beyond what you ever thought you could do. Now, and it's not just about that. Sometimes it's just about being a mother. Not just what you do, but who you are. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. But when we look here, the text says, now 2 prostitutes came to the king. This is King Solomon. And they stood before him. A few Hebrew scholars think that the term prostitute, zonot, should be or could be rendered innkeeper. But most say that these were women of ill repute, and therefore they've translated it as prostitutes. And you think that the rights of women from the fringes of society, that they would not be granted a hearing, especially in this day and time when prostitution would have been illegal, especially in a Hebrew frame of reference. That they wouldn't be given the time of day, let alone a royal audience. And yet Solomon shows that he cares for the lowliness of his people in his kingdom. He defends the poor. He's going to defend the outcast, the disadvantaged. He believes that everybody should have access to justice, and so that's what he's going to ensure here. It doesn't matter that the two prostitutes, they need justice. Israel's kings were sometimes called on to resolve these particular thorny cases. And they were known to grant periods of public access to arbitrate disputes via royal edict. And what we see here is kind of reminiscent of the many popular people's court shows on TV. It's like Judge Judy, only it's King Solomon in this case. And he's king, and even though he's a busy guy, he had time set aside where he would throw open the gates, throw open the throne room, and those who, they were probably screened, and they would get, they would get lined up, and then they would have access, and he would make, by royal edict, he would make these rulings. And so he's got a case here that's going to be a difficult one. It's two women, two prostitutes. There are no witnesses, as you're going to see. There's no CSI Jerusalem that will run DNA tests to make sure that they can prove rightful parentage here. It's a passage that we have in front of us. It's not going to moralize about harlotry and prostitution. It's not going to moralize about wretched behavior of the woman who stole the other woman's baby and lied about it. You're thinking, what in the world are we going to read? Just hang on. Okay? It doesn't moralize about the summary execution of helpless innocent children. What it does do is show us a king who is smart enough to appeal to the loving maternal instinct in order to find the truth. You know, I have told my kids when they were little and you were worried about them, I said, if you ever get lost, because we would go to places sometimes, Disney World or Sea World or some other place, and I was always trying to figure out how can I instill, and Donette too, how can we instill in them, how can they get help if they get separated from us? And if you've been a parent, you know how that is, whether you're a mother or a father. You're worried about that. And I said, if you'll do me this favor, when they're old enough to understand, I said, if we get separated in this huge place with thousands of people, I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to look for a mom with a stroller, and you go ask her to help you find your mama and your daddy. Why did I do that? Okay? Not all hollow, okay? Why did I do that? Okay? I just want God to give me wisdom, but you know why? Because I knew enough to know a lot about life to know what Solomon knew, the maternal instinct of love. Oh, a little lost child, you come here, little sweetie. I'll take care of you. I'll get your mama and your daddy for you. And she'll protect that little one just like it was her own. You know, he had sense enough to understand that. There's power in that. There's safety in this. And so here is the young, wise king, maybe 18 to 20 years of age, fresh off of a vision from God to give him wisdom. And the one case study chosen to demonstrate and show both that wisdom, chosen by the writer, was a case like this. My. What's God going to say through this? Well, again, we see in verse 16, now two prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. And that's where you need wisdom, at forks in the road. You're going to have them in your life. You come to a forks in the road, and we have hundreds. And there's never been a group of people in this day that needed wisdom more than we do. There's so many forks in the road. And when you have two people and they come and stand before you, you better have a wisdom beyond what you know. You need to be tapped into a wisdom source in these situations. And see, what's going to be hard for Solomon in this case is that he didn't have the rules that would help him very much. The rules don't apply. The rules of society really don't apply in this case. Because, you know, in today's court settings, they usually side with the mother. They will assume that the mother is the better person, the parent for the child to be with. And so they'll assume that that's the best place. And so many times the mother gets the babies and the children. Right or wrong or indifferent. That's just how it kind of goes. And it's a rule that society has. But rules don't help him here. I'll tell you why. You know, when you look at this, they're both women. That's the problem. They're both women. Now, that's not, being a woman is not a problem, but the problem is you don't have one or the other you can pick just by looking and by a societal rule make this ruling. He can't fall back on just rules because the rules don't work. And what are you going to do when the rules don't work in your life? You need a wisdom. All right? And that's what he needed, and that's why he called on God for it. And so, but the accepted rule here will not help him. There are many forks in the road where the rules won't help you, and that's why you need wisdom. If you go back in the Old Testament, according to one scholar and preacher, if you go back in the Old Testament, in the book of Proverbs, the Hebrew word most often used for wisdom is a word that actually means training. This is important insight. It means discipline. It means coming under authority. It means, in the Old Testament, there's no such thing as a wisdom without coming under the authority of something. And so you're serving something in your life. You're giving yourself to it religiously. And the question is, what have you given yourself to religiously? Whatever you give yourself to faithfully, consistently, religiously, that is the source of your wisdom. And what is really the most important thing in your life, when you answer that question of what do you give yourself to, you'll have the source of whose authority that you're under. Whatever you hold the most in awe in your life, whatever your king is, whatever the ruling power is, whatever you're most under the authority of, that is the source of your wisdom, and wisdom will emanate from the king you serve. The king, quote unquote, you serve. Who is going to define your wisdom? Let me give you an illustration. So, for example, if your king, if your ruling authority of life, if the thing that you come under is money, let's just use that for an example. That's the most important thing in your life. There's going to be a life wisdom that emanates from that. It'll play out in all the other miscellaneous decisions that you're going to face in your life, all the other forks in the road. Okay? So here's what that wisdom will be. You know, there's a fork in the road and there's a job that satisfies you. It fits your gifts. It's very fulfilling. It's in the right location. It doesn't pay very much, but everything else checks up. But you pass on that job because money's more important to you. Here's another job that you have opportunity to do. It's not that fulfilling. It's not that good of a gift match with your gifts and what they need. But you can do it because you know how to improvise and make it work. And they even are going to offer 6 figures in this job. And what do? Because money is your source of authority. It's your wisdom. Everything's read through that grid. You take that job. You take that job. Why? Because it's your priority. It's what's most important to you. And here's the thing, any wisdom that emanates from any king or true king, but the true king is actually foolishness on its own terms. Because here's what happens. If we choose any other wisdom outside of God's wisdom, it's foolishness on its own terms. And here's what happens. If money is the most important thing in your life, again, this is one illustration of umpteen hundreds of illustrations you could give. So stay with me. If money is the most important thing in your life, you choose a job that isn't fulfilling to you, and in the long run, listen what happens, you'll become less productive because you hate your job. You'll burn out faster because you can't stand doing this every day. And you'll have more money problems because of what you'll need to spend for counseling over the depression that you feel because you're in a mismatched vocation. It doesn't work. And that's what I think is one of the key points we've got to make in this message this morning, is that whatever wisdom, whatever source of authority, whatever you give yourself religiously to, whatever you think about all the time, that's your wisdom. And everything else gets read through that grid. And then what we have to understand is all other wisdoms outside of God is going to put you right where that guy did that chose the bad job. It's going to put you right there. And it's not going to be worth it. And we've got to think about that. So Solomon is in a situation where he doesn't know what rule or what king these women really serve in their lives. He doesn't know it. He's 2 women, 2 prostitutes. They got an issue. It's open court day. They've been given access. He's a good king. He's going to rule in this situation so that everybody in the kingdom knows no matter who you are and what your background, you're going to be given your day in court. I'm going to take care of you. And King Solomon is definitely conveying that. But he's in a dilemma because he doesn't know what their king is, what their worldview is, what they love more than anything else. He's not sure. He knows that Typically, he could look at the gender rule and say, well, the baby would be better with a mother, not the father. Or in this case, it's two mothers. The parental rule really can't use because he doesn't know that yet. The social rule, which woman is in the better social condition to take care of a child? They're both prostitutes, innkeepers who do a little extra on the side. It doesn't help. So he's in a dilemma. The rules don't work. You ever been there in life where the rules don't work? That's where he is. The rules don't work. In front of Solomon are two women, and he does something brilliant that demonstrates and showcases his wisdom to help figure out what is going on in their hearts. What is going on in their wisdom? What they've given themselves to? What they've submitted to? What's most important to them? He appeals to maternal instinct. And he gets his answer. You're going to see it. Now listen, verse 17, slide number 4. One of them said, "Pardon me, my Lord. This woman and I live in the same house." More than likely, they're innkeepers, like I said, who did a little more on the side. "And I had a baby." This woman and I live in the same house, and I had a baby while she was there with me. "The third day," verse 18, "after my child was born, this woman also had a baby. We were alone." There were only the two of them in the house. No other witnesses or evidence was to be found. And so they're basically, the two of these ladies are the only two witnesses to what's transpired here. There's no one else in the house but the two of us. I don't know where the daddies are. That's another message. All right? Another whole message. Another whole series, really. They're not in the picture. Verse 19. "During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him." And let me pause here to say that this would have been a very traumatic experience. "And so she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while I, your servant, was asleep. She put him by her breast and put her dead son by my breast." This is what she thinks has happened. "The next morning," verse 21, "I got up to nurse my son, and he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't the son I had born." And those of you who've had babies, and you have those babies, and you spend those initial minutes and hours with those babies, you memorize every the shape of the ears and the toes and the birthmarks. You have it all down, and so it's easy to understand why a brighter light coming through the window, as it got a little lighter outside, would have revealed to her, wait a second, somebody has swapped babies, because this was not my baby. Slide number 5. "The other woman said, 'No, she says, the living one is my son. You've got it wrong.' Standing before the king. 'The living one is my son. The dead one is yours.' But the first one insisted, 'Oh, no, the dead one is yours. The living one is mine.' And so they argued back and forth before the king. And the king watches this unfold. He's observing their body language. He's observing the statements that they're making. He's listening to this. And so what we have here, an infant boy dies at night, and in her despair and in her anger, it's assumed that this woman goes and finds the other mother who is asleep with her infant baby boy and steals the child while the mother's sleeping. It's crazy, y'all. It's crazy. And 48 Hours and Dateline would have a field day with this one. While they're arguing now, and we'll just leave them in the text for a moment, while they're arguing a little bit about this situation, allow me to interject something here on motherhood, okay? Let's let them argue to the side for a moment. What can we learn about motherhood from this unlikely place? I think it's a good question for us to ask. In reading this week, I learned that mothers teach us about foresight. Make sure you wear clean underwear in case you're in an accident. Mothers teach us about logic. If you fall out of that tree and break your neck, don't come crying to me. Mothers teach us about maturity. Eat your vegetables or you'll never grow up. Mothers teach us about religion. You better pray that comes out of the carpet. Mothers teach us about time travel. If you don't straighten up, I'm going to knock you in the middle of next week. Mothers teach us about contradictions. Shut your mouth and eat your dinner. Mothers teach us about contortionism. Will you look at the dirt on the back of your neck? Mothers teach us about perseverance. You're going to sit here until you eat every last piece of that broccoli. Mothers teach us about genetics. You're just like your father. Mothers teach us about the weather. It looks like a tornado swept through your room. Mothers teach us about the cycle or the circle of life. I brought you in this world and I can take you out. That's right. Mothers teach us all those things. You know, when you look at this passage, you can see those motherly hopes, those longings that probably these moms had for these babies. At least one of the moms, the one with the godly wisdom we'll look at here in just a second, a bit more. But a mother hopes, moms hope that their children grow up to do great things. And notice how the true mother here, the one that's, allegedly, accusing the one lady of stealing her living son and giving her the dead one, the one that does the primary speaking here in the story. She says, and she shows so much respect to the king. She calls him my Lord in verse 17. She says, your servant in verse 20. Again, she says, my Lord in verse 26. I bet deep in her heart there was a hope that maybe her boy could grow up someday and be as great as Solomon was. She showed Solomon so much respect. She has poise, and you can tell right from the amount of respect she shows to the king. This young 20-year-old king still wet behind the ears, trying to figure out how to lead a kingdom and lead a people and advance the story of God. She had hopes that her son could do what he had done. I mean, after all, he was born to Bathsheba. She certainly was privileged to know the story of God in that situation. And here she is, understanding that, maybe God's story can be greater than all my sin stories. That maybe this boy of mine will somehow redeem all the years I've wasted. She probably felt that as a mom. Maybe you felt that way as a mom. And you know what? Both mothers were prostitutes. Did you know that you can find faults with your mom if you just set your head to it? Some of you don't have to look that hard. You can find them real easy. Was your mom a prostitute? I doubt she was. But see, you can find faults with your mom so easy. And but she's still your mom, and she chose to have you and show her respect for that very reason. This mom, harlot mom, but she knew how to show respect, and it's so important that we know how to do that. So a mother hopes. She hoped that her son could be as great as Solomon, maybe. A mother sacrifices. A mom gives up so much just so her baby has what he or she needs. They give up sleep time and pleasures and other joys. There's a runner that I'm following, and since I've kind of been running a little bit, and she's trying to qualify for the Olympics. And she's had 2 babies, and it stretched her stomach, the skin on her stomach, so much that she's kind of become a champion for moms because she's not going to have it fixed or surgically improved. I mean, her whole stomach is stretched, and the skin just hangs there. But she wears her running outfit, and all that skin just kind of hangs there, and she's going hard. People love her. I'm glad she's not covering it up. I'm a mom. I'm proud to be a mom. I'm proud to make the sacrifice. I'm proud to have taken time off of the running circuit. And then now I'm getting ready. And she's passed that first step where she's on her way to try to qualify for the Olympics. Moms do that because they love, because they sacrifice. It's a maternal instinct. A mother nurtures. Notice how the babies were by their mother's breast in this story. All 3 of our babies absolutely love breastfeeding. And I have learned a long time ago not to talk about breastfeeding while my wife is present in the audience. Because I will make some mistakes, and I'm not going to do that. But I will say that Will was the worst. Yes, he was. If you tried to carry on a conversation in the same room while Will was feeding, he would pull off and tell everybody in the room, "You be quiet. I've got serious business here." He would. That was Will. You tell him when you see him again, how does it feel to be a great breastfed baby? He'll love you for it. He'll look at you and grins like, you've been listening to my dad too much. See, a mother hopes, a mother sacrifices, she gives her body, a mother nurtures. I'm sorry this is a Mother's Day sermon. I didn't really plan it that way. It's now, so if your mother's listening up, this is going to work on Mother's Day too, and you think about it, give it to you a little ahead of time, okay? A mother nurtures, a mother protects. The true mother here is willing to forgo parental rights, as you're going to see, just so her baby can live. And I've given you a story about how a mother protects, and it's linked in your YouVersion Resources app. I'm going to save some time. I'm going to skip that story and keep moving. But you can link that story from the YouVersion app resources. And then fifthly, a mother shares. I'm sure you know how mothers share about their kids, and I'm kind of reading into it a little bit here, but I can't help but think that as Mary pondered all the things in her heart about the baby Jesus, that this mom probably pondered for years to come this story of how a great king once saved her son's life, preserved her family, and was in the lineage of a coming king, one greater than Solomon even. And I'm sure she probably got to ponder many, many years the result of this. While we're here, I want you to see a scene. It's out of Mom's Night Out movie, and some of you here that have seen this, you love that movie. This is a mom that's struggling being a mom, and she feels like she's so inadequate. Some days, at the end of the day, she'd just go in the closet and she would watch this little video on the internet here in the movie. She would watch this little video of a mother eagle caring for her young. And that somehow she didn't know why she wanted to watch it, but she would watch it because she just tried to find peace because she always felt like a failure as a mom. I want you to watch this clip, the closet scene, if you would, and then we're going to follow that up with God's Love for Mom scene where Trace Adkins in that bass voice gives us some good truth right out of the movie. Watch this first clip.
Whoa. Hey, hon? Allie. Hey.
You're home. Hi.
What happened?
Just taking a little break. Mommy time.
Okay.
I ate the whole bag.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Seriously, the whole bag?
Actually, I'm hiding.
From what?
The house. It's awful.
It's not awful.
awful.
No, it's not awful. It's bad.
So bad.
No, it's bad, but it's not awful. I mean, some of it's awful. Yeah, come over here.
Sandra posted this. I can't stop watching, and I don't know why.
Weird. Happy Mother's Day.
It's really sweet.
What? Hon? Just
Okay. I'm gonna get up and clean. I'm gonna go right now. Here we go. Nothing's happening. I'm stress paralyzed.
I don't think that's a thing.
It might be a thing. I'm fine. I just need a second.
I don't think you're fine.
I love these shoes. I haven't worn these in like 2 years.
Well, they're good shoes.
It made my legs look so good.
Honey, come on. Oh, honey. Oh.
I'm gonna be fine.
It's okay. We'll make it okay. But,
Sleep.
okay.
Sweeter than wine. It gives you new heart and it makes your face
Me too.
shine in the dark.
Just sleep.
Baby, it's dark outside.
It's like an eagle, right?
Now that scene primarily sets up the next scene, which is really what I want you to see and hear. Go ahead and roll the next scene.
No matter how hard I try, no matter how much I give, I'm not enough.
For who?
What?
Not enough for who?
I mean, Sean, the kids, for my mother, God, everybody, I don't know.
You. Not enough for you. I was raised in church. This might surprise you, but I have since drifted from the faith.
Shocker.
My mama worked 3 jobs. I never met my daddy. I had to get up early and walk to school, but I'd wait up for her coming home from the diner. I'd wait up every night, 'cause she'd come home and she'd put me to bed and she'd tell me something. She'd tell me the same thing every night. He loves you, Charles. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, or how far you run, Jesus will always be loving you with his arms open wide, just for being you. And I'd smile and go off to sleep. You know, I saw something on Pinterest the other day. It was an eagle
Yeah.
just caring for its young. It's a beautiful thing to watch one of God's creations just doing what he made it to do. Just being an eagle. And that's enough. Y'all spend so much time beating yourselves up. Must be exhausting. Let me tell you something, girl. I doubt the good Lord made a mistake giving your kiddos the mama he did. So you just be you. He'll take care of the rest.
Okay, that's good, guys. It's very moving, isn't it? It kind of makes you want to cry with him, with the lady there for a while. But you all beat yourselves up, he says. And boy, moms have a good way of doing that. You just be you. Be the mom he made you to be. Well, let's leave the police station and get back to the text. Slide number 5, verse 23. The king said, "This one says, 'My son is alive and your son is dead,' while that one says, 'No, your son is dead and mine is alive.'" And supposedly he's probably looking at each of these ladies when he makes that comment. Then the king said, "Bring me a sword." Spoken like a true 20-year-old. Let's get to the bottom of this and let's save the court time and money. And they're queued up out there, and so let's get with it. Bring me a sword. And so they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order. Cut the living child in 2 and give half to the one and half to the other. And he must have sounded really, really convincing. You know, the Proverbs 20 verse 8 says that when a king sits on his throne to judge, he winnows out all evil with his eyes. King Solomon sees something in the women after their exchanges. I think he has an idea who the woman that's telling the truth, the mother that's telling the truth, but he needs to verify it. I don't think he intends to kill the child, but he wants to produce his own evidence, and to do that, he decides in wisdom that he has to try the case because of lack of external evidence. He's got to try the case based on a woman's maternal instincts for compassion. That's the only way that can help him see through this. Verse 26, the woman whose son was alive was deeply moved out of love for her son and said to the king, "Please, my lord," again very respectful yet poised, "please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him. Don't do this." She preferred to lose her case and see her rival rewarded than not to let this baby live. But the other said, "Neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in two. Give me my half." And she's perfectly content to allow the execution to take place. Her only objective, to deprive her rival of the fruit of her womb and to secure her status as mother. That was it. Verse 27, slide 6, then the king gave his ruling, "Give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother." Next case. You know, anybody hearing this right away would know that that's not the mother when she says, "Just give me my half." So what's going on? She's a fool, but why is she a fool? Why does she make that foolish remark? Because she wanted the esteem of motherhood more than she wanted the baby. There was a worldly wisdom that she was living her life by. And the true mother shows us something entirely different. She looked at the throne and she said, no, don't ruin his life. Ruin mine. Don't tear him in two. Tear me in two. I want him to have hope and joy, and I'll lose and give away all of my hope and joy, even the esteem of motherhood, if it means he gets to live. When all Israel heard the verdict, verse 28, that the king had given, they held the king in awe, because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. There's two wisdoms here in our story. There's a godly wisdom, and this first woman represents this. It's the true mother. She gave something away in order to gain it, and that's essentially what true wisdom is from God. The way to find your life is to lose your life. The way to get real power you can't lose is to submit. The way to get real riches that you can't lose is to give away. It's the irony of God's wisdom. And the astounding thing about this woman was she gave away the esteem of motherhood so her child could have joy. She gave away all of her joy. She gave away all of her hope so he could have it. And in the fork, in the road moments of life, we have to find ways of giving up things. And we have to be willing to say, I see a sword. I see a sword in this decision. That something is going to die. Something's going to have to be given up. Something's going to have to be surrendered. Something's going to have to be sacrificed. And she looked at the throne and she said, no. She said, don't ruin his life. Ruin mine. Don't tear him into two. Tear me into two. I'll bear it. I'll bear the sword so he can have hope and joy. I'll lose and give away all of my hope and joy. And when we see this, we see an incredible wisdom, this submitted wisdom to her one true king. The world's wisdom is seen in the second woman. I think she reached for something and lost it. And it happens so many times. We reach for what we think we want. And when we don't ascertain it, or we can't achieve it, or we can't accomplish it, then we face these forks in the road without God, and we end up doing crazy things. And there are bitter mothers And bitter people all over the world who are characterized by a spirit of selfishness. They're characterized by a spirit of heartless cruelty. They want their half. And the relationships don't matter. And the truth is sacrifice to the sword. They're bitter with life. They're hateful. They're armed with 1,000 reasons why life is unfair. Why I got the dead baby and someone else didn't. And they pour out their vengeance on their friends and their families. And these are the mothers who walk out when things get hard and they leave the family high and dry, and they don't care who they hurt, just so long as others close to them aren't happy either. And they project onto other significant people in their lives all of the hurt that they have accumulated over the years. When I think about this, and someone said that when you take an Old Testament thread and you pull it, and it unravels, at the end of it is Jesus. And when I look at this Old Testament thread, this story, I think of the one who said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." He says, "Take my yoke." There it is. That's wisdom. Come under my authority. Subject your life, whether you're trying to be a mother or a father or a marriage partner or whatever it is you're trying to aspire to do and to be in life, whatever fork in the road you have in front of you, take my yoke upon you. Come underneath that authority. Let it be the thing that you think about. Let it be the thing that you want to live out. Let it be the thing that you want to master in your life. Let it be my authority to be your authority. Come under me, obey me. I am the true king. You will not go wrong with the wisdom that I can impart in your life. And if you make Jesus your king instead of anything else, or instead of everything else, you're in a position to be able to handle life as this woman handled it in the story. And what's really interesting is that this king, King Solomon, doesn't just point us to the hero of our story, to the true king of our story. The woman points us to Jesus too. She looked at the throne and she said, no, she says, don't ruin his life. Ruin mine. Don't tear him into two. Tear me into two so he can have hope and joy. I will lose and give away all of my hope and my joy. And I ask you, church, does this remind you of somebody? Don't you realize that there was one that was greater, who stood before an eternal throne, and He looked at us and He saw the sword of judgment over our lives. He saw that we should have been punished for our foolishness and our neglect. He saw what we did, what we said. And what did He say to the throne? What did He say to His Father? He says, don't ruin them. Ruin me. Don't tear me, or don't tear them into pieces. Tear me into pieces. I'll give up my joy. I'll give up my hope. I'll give up joy and hope so that they can find it, so that they can have it. And they can have the story. And men and women, when that begins to melt your heart, you're ready for a new king. You're ready for a new wisdom. And He's the only king that you can't lose. He's the only king who will forgive you. And if you have Him as your true king, you'll be wise. You'll be utterly wise. And in summary, if you're not a Christian, or maybe I'll put it this way, if you know that maybe God is not the most important thing in your life, that Jesus isn't your most important thing, then that means that there is something else in your life that has been the source of wisdom and meaning for you. And you're going to see all of life through that one important thing. And eventually the wisdom of that thing will fail you. And this is why I think this story is a beautiful story, because it points us to Christ, who has to be all of our reasons, all of our wisdom, if we're ever going to make it through this thing we call life, make it through parenthood and marriage and vocational decisions and all the things that we have to decide on in the forks in the road in our life. And until He is that, until He is our king, He won't be any wisdom for you at all. It'll be a great untapped resource of a new life and a new beginning. How is it today? What source, what wisdom have you come under? And how is it playing out? You pray with me? Thank you, God, for this day. Thank you for coming under the sword. Not just for a story that happened long ago, but also for the motherly instinct that you've embedded. The love that we've all been privileged to because we were born. And moms that loved and cared for us, even though flawed, they loved and cared for us, and we want to thank you for that. And we also want to thank you for Christ. Some of us need so much wisdom today. We're standing in a fork in the road. And while we don't realize it, our most important thing, whether it's fame or power or money, dictates how we're going to make that decision every time. And today we want a new authority. We want to come under a new king. A new way to make decisions. A new way to live life. And so, God, we come today and trust you to help us make that step. And we'll honor you in all the decisions that we make. Do the best we can. And just be who we're called to be. In Jesus, we are praying all these things. Amen. Will you stand with me? You've been a great group. Again, we'll post some resources to the Facebook page. That's probably by this afternoon. If you want to check there later on this week or whatever, they'll be there for you. Pray for all the different needs that have been mentioned today. And Lord's blessings on each of you. You have a good day. I love you today. You walk with Him. Amen.